Hey everyone, welcome to another Angry Artist podcast. So I was really thinking about my freelance experience for the past 4 years, and I wanted to talk about a concept that one of my mentors, Bobby Chu of Imaginum Studios, told me when I was 19 years old 8 years ago. Now, it didn't really dawn upon me why it was important because, of course, I was just starting out my art school. But when I started to be a professional, that's when his words meant something. Now, this goes back into business talk. It will apply to a lot more than just art. I call this the holy trinity of how to be appealing to your clients. The concept is actually pretty simple. If you excel at two of these three aspects, then you will be very easy to work with. Now, of course, you want to aim to be all three of these, but two of these will generally get you very far in the industry. So what are these aspects? Now, the first point is you want to be easy to work with. Now, everyone has their own personalities, everyone has their own working styles, and of course, I'm not here to say, hey, you have to be friends with every single client you meet, and that you will meld very well with every single person you ever meet in your life. What I mean by easy to work with is simply, are you meeting your deadlines? Are you making drama in the studios? Are you somebody who can really adapt? And that's not to say, again, that you have to be friends with everybody, but even in a professional environment, and you have people that you might not like, can you do your job very well? So that's really step number one. Very self-explanatory. I'm sure if you've worked anywhere, your coworkers will love you if you are easy to work with. Now, the second aspect is, are you good? Now, this doesn't just mean you are very technical and you are amazing at art. It also means that you are able to use your work and your skills to do what people need you to do in the environment and perhaps even excel at it. So what I mean by that is that you exceed expectations of your coworkers and that you become indispensable within the environment. Now, this aspect is something I like to talk about a bit more because I feel like a lot of artists don't understand that if their skill sets are very similar to a lot of other people's, then perhaps you become dispensable. So that means that if, let's say, you ask for a raise, or if there is even a slight issue with how people perceive you, then you're not technically good, quote unquote, and that people are more likely to shuffle you out of a work environment. That's really the harsh reality of it, which is why it's always important to really be that guy or girl. Be really good at your job. That's not to say if you are an a-hole to a lot of people that even if you're amazing, they won't kick you out. People will still choose someone who is easy to work with than to have somebody make drama, even if they're very good. Now, the third aspect is pricing. Are you worth the price? Now, this is not very hard to describe. If your prices are worth your presence, then you will more likely appeal to your clients. Now, this is up to your skill level, it's up to your reputation, it's up to your attitude. Pricing in art has been talked about in my previous podcast. I might go back to it, but you can check it out and see how I make my prices. So really, when we combine these three things together, we have basically the holy trinity of business. So let me give you some examples of what I mean. So let's take artist A. He or she is amazing at art, but he or she is very hard to work with, and his or her prices are very high. And an indie studio is probably going to perceive that as way out of their budget, even though they're very good. Now, a higher end studio might look at them and be like, hey, we like your work, we're gonna hire you. Now, a higher end studio will see them as worth the price. So therefore, this artist has 2 out of the 3 aspects. Now, of course, if this particular artist likes to create a ton of drama in the work environment to the point where their value goes down in the eyes of everyone else, then perhaps you take away that one aspect and they only are left with being very good at art. And that's when the bosses will basically tell them to look forward to their future endeavors. Now let's take artist B. Artist B, let's just say his and he. I don't want to say he and her all the time. Anyways, very easy to work with, might not be the most skilled artist, and his prices are very reasonable, very cheap. Now, because of that, 2 out of 3 people might hire him because, of course, if you are an indie studio, maybe they like his prices and his work is adequate for the quality that they're looking for, as long as you have 2 out of the 3. Now, let's think of artist C. Very easy to work with, the most charismatic person you'll ever meet. Let's just use a female for this example. She is insanely good at art. Prodigy. Graduated the best in her year. She has a fantastic style for the studio. And again, very friendly, very humble, no attitude problems. Now, she might be very expensive, but that's okay because everyone likes her. The boss thinks she is great for the work environment. She boosts morale, and her work inspires everyone else to raise up their game. So you can have those types of artists as well. Now, of course, what's the final combination? It's all 3. Let's say artist D is some fantastic artist, very charismatic, very friendly, and very cheap to boot. Of course, every studio will want to hire this person. We don't have to go really that far and explain too much. So what is the lesson of this? In my years of experience, almost all artists are going to be artist A, B, or C. If you are lacking in one of these aspects, but you really hit the criteria for the other 2, then you will still be in very good shape. The issue comes when you are only one of the 3. Now, this is not particularly hard to achieve, to get 2 out of the 3. The reason why is you might have noticed that there's only one thing that you really need to focus on when you are learning art. It's the fact that you have to be good. Being a good person, you could obviously say that you have to learn into it or whatever, but attitude is something that you can control at any time that you need to. Even if you are a horrible person, not saying that you are, at least to your clients, be nice to them, be friendly, be welcoming, and people will enjoy your company. And of course, pricing your art is also something you can control very readily. When I started out, I realized I was overvaluing my own work and I was overpricing it. So with a snap of my fingers, I lowered my prices overnight to match the skill rating of my work. Of course, as I got better, I can gradually increase that to something more reasonable to my current skill level. But again, very easy to do. One more thing to explain. If you are lacking in one of these things, very obviously, then you will most likely offset having 2 out of these 3. So for instance, even if you are very friendly and your work is amazing, if your work costs $1 billion, then perhaps you might want to rethink your prices. Or let's say you are amazing and your prices are cheap, but you are the worst person in the world, then perhaps it's not going to balance out. So see these aspects as sort of a guideline, not the rules of the universe. Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed that and you learned something. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.